The Tyrannosaurus Rex is nothing new to the world of Ark. A generic jack-of-all-trades, straight-to-the-point powerhouse used primarily within boss fights. But one question has been stuck in my head for days at this point. Just what creatures from the modded side of Ark can fill that niche just as good, if not better? Well, hello everyone, my name is Ark-Rector, and in today's video we will be taking a look at 15 modded dinos that could be perfect Rex alternatives, ranked entirely on my own opinion, as well as how easy they are tameable compared to the vanilla king of Ark. So let's jump right into it. On number 15 we got Empirosaurus from the mod Arcology Overseer Experiments by Dragonheart. Yep, we're starting off the list with another one of these hyper Spinos. Honestly, I was considering to even put them on this list, cause I thought they only spawn on Aberration, but these guys spawn around lakes and rivers on the islands, Santa, Ragnarok and even Valguero, as well as of course the blue and red zone on Aberration and the trenches of the Sanctuary. Anyway, the reason for them being so low on the list is for being a very late tame. You need to be level 95 in order to tame them, as well as crafting their saddle, which you can also find in higher tier loot crates or drops. Their taming method on the other hand isn't that difficult, but rather tedious and resource heavy. In order to tame them, they got to have their hydration buff, and then you have to stab them with an electrical prod, which will stun them and allows you to feed them their preferred taming food, exceptional kibble or prime fish meat. For that, I highly recommend using a mount with decent HP where you can use a weapon on, and simply just stand in the shallow water and poke it whenever you can. Then jump off and feed. Or have a friend with you who does the tanking and poking. Once tamed and settled up, these big boys got a good amount of attacks, such as a left-click bite, a right-click claw swipe, a nasty scolding fire breath, which even sets the annoying pyromanes ablaze, just to name a few. All of their attacks are already higher than the Rex's base damage, and they get even stronger with their hyperhydration buff, which of course activates as soon as they touch water. And this boosts your Harpy's HP regen, speed and damage 20% more than the normal hydration buff of the generic Spino. Overall, this thing is a bloody menace, with it having higher base HP than a Rex and all of those attacks, which allows you to shred through essentially anything you can encounter in the world of Ark. But since it's such a late tame and you spend a lot of resources on all these electric prods, I decided to put it on the very last slot of this list. Next we got the Petaltail Spino from the mod of the very same name by MODDED. This, I dare to say, very paleo-accurate Spino rules the watery regions of Ark alongside the vanilla Spino, but also rarely in the oasis regions of Scorched Earth and the Desert Dome on Extinction. These dinos can be easily tamed in a unique passive way. Basically, what you gotta do is wait for them to stand still in the water, and before they eat a fish they spotted, which is noticeable when the spoon stands still and lowers its head, simply drop exceptional kibble or raw prime fish near its snoot. When it eats the fish, it will also devour the drop taming food, gaining taming process. Just make sure you keep your distance. I would also highly recommend to use ghillie gear as well as a flyer where you can drop the kibble from whilst airborne. And of course, just do the generic clearing of the area before even taming this guy. Once you manage to tame it, you can unlock its saddle at the same level as the vanilla Spino, or find them in red loot drops and underwater cave drops. It got a directional bite, a claw swipe, a grab attack, which allows you to also or grab targets, a tail spin when swimming, the ability to regulate the surrounding temperature, and a roar. Plus, when it is in the water, it will quickly gain its Hydro buff, which grants it more speed and damage. But unlike the normal Spino, it can only regen HP faster if it has this fish symbol filled, which you can only fill up by, well, killing fish. Unlike the Empirosaurus and the other critters on this list, this guy has some really fragile health, with it only being slightly higher than the normal Spinos. Plus, these extra abilities with a Hydro and fish buff means it is only really viable in freshwater areas or anywhere with water really. It is really easy to tame, of course, and I give it that, but there are just other dinos on this list who simply outshine it. On number 13 we got the Tyranno Titan from Additional Creatures Wild Ark by the Real Shadless. This large theropod, which is in the same family as the mighty Giga and bloodthirsty Cornosaurus, is made to hunt big game. This strong-jawed meat-eater spawns around similar biomes as the Rex, that being grasslands, mountains, Monster Island, Scorched Mountains, the Sunken Forest and Green Deserts. It's a lot easier to find these guys more often, and them being a really simple knockout tame, which prefers extraordinary kibble to tame up, is a lot easier to tame than some others on the list. So what got this guy on the list is his simplicity. He only got a primary bite attack and a roar, which sounds very familiar. After all, the sound is from a sound pack that everyone can buy and use copyright free after all. However, they might not look like much, but they got something that is impressive. Unlike the Acrocanthosaurus coming to the main game, this guy does the complete opposite. It deals more damage the larger a target is. It is based on drag weight, with Tyranno's own being 500. Anytime it bites something with higher drag weight, it will deal a total of 2.5 times more damage. On the other hand, if Tyranno Titan gets attacked by something that is higher than 600 drag weight, it will take 20% less of the incoming damage. On screen here you can see a level 1 testing out against a level 1 Rex to give you a rough idea. Now keep in mind that something like the Guardians have a lot of drag weight, with the Broodmother having around 1200 to be exact, meaning you can deal a lot of damage to them, as well as the bigger brutes of Genesis 1 for the future. On screen you can see a level 150 imprinted, all levels put into damage. You might think this alone should have placed it a lot higher. However, sadly you cannot find better versions of the saddle, and if you don't use something like the upgrade station, you're just stuck with primitive ones. I mean, you can still use them to literally just make an army of glass cannons to challenge the bosses if you want. Keep in mind that your creatures will more than likely die. Oh, and by the way, these guys can also sit down. Just look, isn't that adorable? Smacking its claws proudly, we have the newest edition of the Paleo mod team, the Ledumahadi. From the mod Paleo, Evo are rulers of the wasteland. This giant of an early sauropod, who got the power of God on his side, is a rare desert spawn, primarily within the canyons and badlands of Scorched Earth, Ragnarok and the Extinction Wasteland. And the taming method is rather unique, where you have to attack the one you want until it enters its block stance. Once it entered this, you have to attack its arms with other guns or even electrical based weapons in order to charge up its kinetic energy, where you then have to shoot it when it's about to perform its deadly thunderclap attack, which if done right will deal a chunk of torpor to the dino. After every successful parry, there will be a 20-second cooldown before you can start doing this over again. I would recommend using that time to just reload your weapons and whatnot. Rinse and repeat until it's knocked out. And feed it extraordinary kibble. The saddle can be unlocked at level 90 or be found in high level loot crates, and once mounted it got a plethora of moves, as well as 2 stances. In quad stance it has a left click bite, when looking backwards it will perform a tail swipe, a right click headbutt. Meanwhile in biped stance its left click is now a powerful claw swipe attack, and if you hold right click it will enter its blocking stance. Whilst this is good for reducing incoming damage and gaining kinetic energy in return, it does take away stamina. The Ledumahadi is a true powerhouse of a herbivore, which is always good to see, and although it can even parry attacks by blocking at the right moment to dish out a 3-hit combo when enough energy is provided, as well as being able to perform 2 large AoE field control ultimate attacks depending on the stance, makes it a really good alternative for the players. But it does stay on only number 12 because of how late you can get one, needing to be level 90, and the taming method itself can be really risky, but in return you have a creature that can hold bosses and their minions at bay, or easily deal with the hordes during OSDs. Next up we have the Empirosaurus from the same mod as the previous entry, and this high quality fantasy desert dwelling Spinosaurus spawns within the same areas as Ledumahadi, and also might show up in the White Cliffs on Bulgaro, as well as the Center Volcano biome. However, like the previous entry, this creature has a very unique taming method, where you simply have to wait for it to bask in the sun like a Dinosuchus, and then hit it in its sail with a flame arrow to even start the taming. Now you gotta let it attack your mount to build up heat. For that well, Rex would be a pretty good choice. And you want that the Spino primarily uses its claws over its bite to build up heat. And as this thing wails on your tame, simply hit it with flame arrows once its sail starts glowing bright enough. The arrow will then deal some torpor, depending on the crossbow's weapon damage as well. And now simply repeat this over and over until it's knocked out. Once it has been brought to its knees, you can feed it exceptional kibble or raw mutton. But now, over the reason why it is so low on the list. First off, you have to be level 90 to even tame and ride one. Second, whilst they have a plethora of moves and abilities, we'll be focusing on mainly 2 really, which are pretty unique. And that being their heat gauge and Mela's meter. You gain heat with a claw swipe and lose heat when using the bite, which already deal high base damage. However, when unmounted they cycle through their attacks, which leads to them increasing and decreasing their body heat. Since the higher your Empiro's heat is, the more damage it will deal, as well as double
doubling attacks, gaining bleed resistance, etc. But if it reaches 100%, it will go into heat exhaustion, which gives it many debuffs such as not being able to sprint or perform its claw swipes, but it does heal a lot faster in this state. The Malice meter, on the other hand, increases when you kill creatures. The higher the drag weight, the better. Once Malice is full, you can activate it with the Roar, and it will lock the current heat tier, which means you can now spam the attacks without worrying about overheating. All in all, the Empirosaurus is a fantastic put together dinosaur and very well made, but what puts it so low for me was the fact that it's a very late game creature. You need a tank to tame it, and when unmounted they won't use their full potential. But if you have some friends and a crazy idea, you could all use them in boss fights and a simple Rex army in the background for support maybe. Coming in on the number 10 slot is the Tyranno Dominator by Tristan's Modding, a creature which I covered in a recent video. The Tyranno Dominator and all of its naturally spawning variants can be found in a large amount of biomes, from mountains, grasslands, to deserts, and the hostile lands of aberration and extinction. It is not hard to find one you want to tame. Unlike the Rex, it's not a standard knockout tame. Instead, you have to use the cannon rocket from this mod and shoot it in its face when it wars. It's not the cost of the rockets that bothers me, but rather the taming itself. If you miss even a bit, this dino will take a bunch of damage, which means you have to try and feed it a corpse, and it's easier said than done when it has some nasty medium ranged attacks. Even when using a track, this can be rather tricky to pull off. Sure, they have some sick looking armor which grants them more defense than a primitive Rex saddle, and you can find these armor attachments in either loot crates, killing the Alpha or Elder Tyranno Dominator. Thanks to their high speed, good damage, which surpasses the Rexes, and their good mobility, makes them still a good choice for a everyday Rex tier land mount. However, they are so low on the list, not because the damage output isn't good enough, but I would specifically say because of their taming method. Even compared to some of the other creatures on this list, like Ledumahadi or Empirosaurus, this one is, in my opinion, a lot more difficult to obtain. But then, why is your number 10 instead of being much lower? I would literally just say it's because when you get one, considering all of the armor that you can equip on them, which grants them again more defense, would be enough, in my opinion at least, to put them on the number 10 slot. But what do you think about that? Let me know. Coming in on number 9 is Big L's Meraxes. This true savage of a carnivore can primarily be found in redwoods, grasslands, on scorched earth. You can find its scorched variant and even a tech version in the extinction wastelands. And if I could describe this guy in a single sentence, I would say it's the more aggressive and combo-hungry Rex cousin. Although I'm not certain it is even remotely related to Rexes. Anyway, taming one of course isn't as easy as the vanilla Rex. It's not just a standard knockout, walk in the park tame. No, for this one you'd have to sacrifice your own baby dinos, with the most effective ones being Giga, Courage, Judy, Spino, and, well, the Rex. Proves that you certainly have to be at a specific point in a game to even tame one. Also, the level of the babies does count, so you can't just go for low level ones. If you want to tame one, however, and you are ready to give a willing sacrifice, unlike what Griffith did in Berserk, make sure the babies are neutral and only beat them one at a time. Once enough blood has been spilled, you got yourself something really good. With it having a good primary bite, a secondary directional stomp attack which gets nastier, it also has its own healing ability on C. Once toggled, your Meraxes will consume food at a higher rate, but also heals itself from every bite it does. 10% HP from the damage it dealt, to be exact. It even got a lovely roar on right control and can sit down. The main thing it got though has to be that rage, which works similar like the one of the Giga, but it doesn't throw you off. It will deal 15% more damage as well as taking 15% less, and its right click attack when moving forward turns into a combo attack which absolutely messes up smaller targets. It also performs a triple foot stomp if standing still, and if you move backwards and right click, deals a nasty double hitting tail slam. All of these abilities combined make this thing a monster for boss fights. OSDs to get rid of smaller targets perhaps, or generic meat or hydrons really. So all in all, it is a fantastic Rex alternative. Charging in on number 8 is the Cornosaurus from the additional creature standalone mod made by my good friend the Real Shadloss. This Wendigo Rex spawns only within redwoods and the fertile chamber in aberration and the sunk forest in extinction, plus there's some sexual dimorphism, with the males having a much more unique color pattern compared to the females, which I gotta say is a very neat feature. And in my opinion, the aesthetic of this critter alone was reason enough for me to almost put them even higher than I ended up doing. They are simple knockout tames and prefer the highest tier of kibble, which compared to the other creatures so far makes them a good chunk easier to tame, but the fact that they are very rare as well as not being a straight up powerhouse like the Rex is, why they are on the number 8 slot. They have a strong bite, which if you bite a bleeding target, Corno will gain the feeding buff, which grants it 15 HP, 5 stam regen, and when eating a corpse it will gain a RG style healing buff. Left click for Pecky-like charge, C for a headbutt which inflicts bleeding, X for tail swipe, and control for a little roar. But Corno's main ability is Bloodlust, and how this works is rather simple. With every kill your Corno does, it will build up Bloodlust. Once it is full, it will enter the Bloodlust state and won't go down as long as you keep on killing. And this is where it's at. You really don't want to run out of this buff, because if you do, your Corno will get exhausted, which weakens it by a huge amount in terms of damage output and input. However, since this beast is kinda nocturnal, it won't enter its exhausted state during the night when you lose your Bloodlust buff. And because of these unique mechanics, Corno is a really good Rex tier contender for certain scenarios, primarily for something that has a lot of enemies like Extinction OSTs or Element Veins, or even the normal arc bosses, but you gotta make sure that they actually kill the minions in order to deal the damage you seek. So it is very important that you keep an eye open for its buffs, otherwise you could easily lose your Cornos. On number 7 we have the mighty Magnapaulia from Additional Creatures Wild Arc. And this huge Hadrosaur is on this list for the simple reason of being able to actually heal other dinos. Yes, this giant herbivore acts like a Rex tier Daedon. Kinda. First of all, these things spawn in grasslands, redwoods, the green desert, and sung forest on extinction. But this large brawler of a herbivore has a rather unique but not too difficult taming method. All you need are 3 artifacts to craft the item a worthy challenge: a strong herbivore or omnivore mount and time. I know you think the 3 artifacts are a bit much, but it is worth considering that you can just grab easily obtainable artifacts. It doesn't matter which ones you grab really. Once you found the Magnapaulia you want, simply feed the challenge item to your mount and engage combat with the Hadrosaur. You'll see some red clouds around its head. Now all you gotta do is fight it. You will deal less damage during this, but once you get it down to 25% of its max HP, it will collapse to the ground, where you then have to keep an eye on it and protect it, since it will gain aggro from pretty much everything during these 300 seconds. As soon as you successfully manage to keep it safe, it will get up, and from here simply passively feed it Crop Blend or Superior Kibble. When it comes to their attacks, they have a basic left click bite, a right click hip check, which is a parry move. If you connect this attack with the enemy's attack at the exact time, you basically return the attack back to the sender. That includes a quarter of the damage you should have taken, multiplied by the Magna's own damage, as well as any sort of debuff gets reflected to the attacker, if that one has any sort of debuffs like bleed, fire, etc. As mentioned earlier, however, this Titan can heal. How that is done is really simple. All you gotta do is holding spacebar to perform its jabbing attack. This builds up a meter, and once that is full, use left control to perform the healing boom roar. This not only knocks back enemies but also deals damage to them and heals your dinos, and recovers 16% of the total health of your dinos, as well as draining torpor and regaining stamina for 40 seconds. This in general would make Magnapaulia a valuable addition to your boss fights, where even just using a whole army of them with veggie cakes could certainly break the goddamn dragon. Their entire role is basically just a tanky herbivorous support brawler, and this alone would have been enough to put them even higher, but I didn't do that primarily because of the taming method.
On number 6, we got yet another addition from the Wild Arc mod, the Edmontosaurus, aka pretty much Herbivore Rex. These Hadrosaurs got some stats that get pretty darn close to the Rex's ones itself, with their base HP being 1100, however their damage is a bit weaker, primarily their main bite attack, but their right click storm attack has a base damage of 69, and their rear kick on C also deals that same base damage. If you want to tame one, they are standard knockout tame, simply feed them Crop Blend or regular Kibble, and they can be found within redwoods, grasslands, and tundras. Only problem is they tend to spawn in groups, so getting the one you want could be a bit of a hassle, but nothing too difficult really. Their saddles are also not super expensive, but suffer from the problem of not having better quality versions in drops. That alone was reason enough for me to put them on number 6 instead of much higher than I originally had in mind. But overall, I think they're just a really good alternative for a Herbivore Rex. Yet again. And also recall me and my buddies using these creatures on the mission dinos on Genesis 2, and it worked pretty well, so this could be a potential use in the near future. Of course, we gotta keep up the run with another powerhouse of a herbivore, the Zangorotherium, aka the better and cooler Paracer. This sucking lino giraffe thing is from the mod of the same name and published by Tristan's Modding. It has a total of 4 variants. The normal one lives in swamps, grasslands and redwoods, whilst the Scorch version is in the oasis and canyon regions. The aberrant version lives in the green and blue zone, and its alpha variant can spawn in all of them. In order to tame them, you have to hit them with a cannon, which might throw some of you off considering how annoying concussive tames can be. However, unlike the walking boulder or Mr. Krabs, you can literally hit them everywhere you want on the body, and on a level 150 you only need like around 5 or 6 cannonballs to get knocked out. How you want to do that is really up to you, with either a resource friendly trap, being fast, or having a friend with a Paracer platform saddle equipped with a cannon. It doesn't really matter. Once it is knocked out, just feed a generic herbivore food or at best superior kibble. It has 2 saddles as of now, with the normal one being unlocked at level 50, which gives it 50% more weight reduction and is obtainable from purple to red drops. Whilst its mighty metal looking armored saddle is held at level 60 and provides more armor, adding that on top of Zang's base 15% natural resistance and its defensive stance, which grants it plus 60% armor, makes this thing a bloody tank of a mammal. Also on a later note, because I literally just figured this out, they have a goddamn platform saddle. It has a variety of stomp attacks which deal really good base damage. Considering they are herbivores means you can give them magic cakes of course in order to heal them even faster. An nasty headbutt attack, a Giga Stomp as I like to call it. All of this combined with its incredible base HP and of course as mentioned earlier natural resistance makes this thing an amazing creature to basically just stampede through the boss arenas and just flatten everything in your way. With the number 4 slot, we actually got our very first and only cryptid on this list. The one-horned giant, Emela-Ntouka, is making a lovely return in ASA. Like most other creatures from Shad, it is a vanilla knockout tame, and despite its very ceratopsian looks, it either wants superior kibble or mutton to be tamed. You can find them in grasslands, jungles, and the greener parts of the deserts. Once you settle it up, it got a left-click bite, a right-click horn attack, which deals piercing damage like the Theris claws, and it can Stomp on C, which is its strongest attack, and it deals 50% more damage to every target that has 150 drag weight or less. These things have incredible base stats that easily rival one of the Rex, as well as stamina, speed, and stamina drain when they're sprinting, making them a perfect Rex tier critter for exploring the map in my opinion. But there's more. They are known for their hatred towards mammals.
Hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live.
So they deal way more damage towards anything that is classified as such, with a nasty 2.25 times multiplier in fact. And that does count for the Megapithecus boss as well as the Manticore on Scorched Earth, potentially even the Dinopithecus King or Fenrir in the future. If you really want something that just messes up mammals, I would personally just go for Emela-Ntoukas, guys. On the fiery number 3 slot, we got the Dodospondy, aka Small Dodorex from the mod Shadless Tameable Bosses. I know you might think, Ark, you have way too many critters from Shad on here. I know, but thing is, I have a good amount of personal experience with these creatures from Survival Evolved alone. So there's that. Anyway, this fried fire chicken can be found in mountains, deserts, the desert dome on Extinction, and sulfur fields. Just knock it out with normal tranks as soon as you find one you like, feed it exceptional kibble, mutton, etc., and you're good to go. Like the Rex, it has a left click bite with 62 base damage, C is a roar, and of course right click is the iconic fire breath, which deals the same amount of damage as the fire wyverns. Plus they are completely immune to fire, so show the dragon who's boss on this arc. But that's pretty much it. It's a fire breathing T-Rex for God's sake, with better speed and stamina. What more could you want? Well, probably better saddles that A, look better and B, have better quality. But I didn't want to put it on a much lower slot because of this, since again, it's a fire breathing T-Rex pretty much. And that alone is a good enough reason to keep him here. We got ourselves the Oxalaia on number 2, a spoon which I showcased not too long ago really. This mighty swamp and river dino was made by Blue Suko and later fixed by Shadloss, who gave it some needed love and fixes that I hoped would be added when I first talked about it. Anyway, like the other 2 entries, this thing is a knockout tame, but watch out for they have hit the gym and are now much faster than before. Just give them extraordinary kibble and you're good. Since these upgrades, the Oxa is now more of a buffing brawler with its main bite dealing good damage damage. Its right-click claw attack inflicts a bleed debuff which drains 5% of the target's HP, but it does have a cap of 5k and it does work on bosses. Its Sea-Roar not only shoves away targets but also inflicts the Mammoth Intimidation and buffs allies with the rallied buff. This recovers slight bits of HP and grants 5% more resistance for 60 seconds. But it will also grant allies over 75% HP with the Frenzy buff. This one will give them 25% more damage in return. It does have a parry move similar to Magnapaulia on spacebar. Again, this is difficult to pull off, but if you don't want to use that, simply press left control to change the parry move into a powerful foot stomp attack. Also, Oxalaia now gains the hydration buff and even an RG style heal when it eats the remains of any sort of water dino, and that does count for even the smallest fish. These new features and abilities made it an obvious choice for me to add the Brazilian Spinosaurid to this list. You can either use a whole group of them to clash the big boys of Ark, or simply stand in the background to support your friends with buffs and bleed. Pick a role, my friends, but I gotta say it was a really close call between Oxalaia and the next creature on the list. And that would be the one, the only Ledumahadi or Retrox, as it's also known by, done by Aish Crooked. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you guys saw this one coming. After all, I made a full-on in-depth guide on this thing a couple months ago, and just like back then, it is on the #1 slot for a simple reason of, well, being really simple in itself. After all, it has no fancy spawn entries, just look around where you normally find Rexes or Carnos, mainly when looking for its aberrant variant really, and then just knock it out and feed it what you usually feed Rexes. Sure, you can only craft a saddle in a fabricator, but that doesn't matter since you can also find these saddles in loot crates to armor them up even more. But it gets even better. With its rivalry buff indicated by a red glow and angry facial expression on your Retrox, this buff activates whenever they are near allied or unallied carnivores of 390 direct weight or higher and grants 10% more health, 15% damage and 3% more resistance, which boosts their already high attack potency with their strong bite and powerful foot stomp attack, makes them a perfect candidate to take on powerful enemies. Even swarms of rock drakes will fall to them. But if you need to get away, simply hold spacebar to perform a super jump, which even outperforms the Reaper out of all creatures. Hell, in my guide I even showcased how good an army of them is against the Beta Island bosses. And in that test I only used stats and gear that you can easily obtain by simply playing. But all in all, I personally love the Retrox since it's basically a fun-sized Cornosaurus, and with all of its rather simple and to-the-ground abilities, I think it very much deserves the #1 slot. Oh, and you can get a cool skin from the alpha version as well. And there you have it, folks, my 15 modded Rex alternatives. Do you agree with these choices, or do you think there was some missing, or which of these would you personally like to give a try? Let me know in the comments below. My name is Arcrector. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like, subscribe to not miss out on future content. It really does help out. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.